Hello, fellow rebel capitalists. Hope you're well. I am back with my good buddy, Doug Casey. And our objective today is to piss you off. Doug, are you up for the challenge?
Oh, that's, I'd say, the easiest challenge I've even had today. Forget about this week.
All right. Well, let me start off by asking you, what do you think of Trump so far?
Well, it's a complicated situation. A lot of people say, I like what he's doing, but I don't like his personality. I feel just the opposite. I love his personality. He's boisterous, he's a lot of fun, great sense of humor, very amusing, free entertainment. But the problem I have with Trump, first of all, a Trump was needed because Uh, although he's not philosophically opposed to the deep state by any means, he's an opportunist. But the deep state came out against him, and he hates them and he wants to destroy them. So uh, he's wonderful from that point of view. Uh, God, where to start with him? I mean, look, did you see? Let me start this way. Did you see on Zero Hedge last week there was a something on Harris Kupperman, Cuppy,
Yeah,
as everybody
copy.
knows him.
Yeah,
The thing where he talks about the first 6 hours of his day as a
I
fund
did.
manager.
I
Yeah,
forwarded that to Chris McIntosh the other day.
it was hilarious. It
Yeah,
was
it
it was hilarious.
really
Where all he has to do, all he can do as a professional fund manager is react to the next thing that Trump says,
yeah,
which Trump usually and Trump reverses himself 6 minutes later.
yeah.
So that's the problem with Trump. He's schizophrenic philosophically. And the reason for that is I wrote an article about Trump in the form of an interview in 2012,
Mm,
where I think I diagnosed the situation perfectly. And I said, the problem with Trump is he has no ethical or philosophical core,
right.
and he doesn't. He didn't even know if he was a Democrat or Republican. Not that there's any difference really between the two of them at this point. But all right, I want to answer the question. Problem with Trump, it's this stupid idea of tariffs on his part, where he says idiotically, tariffs is the most beautiful word in the English language. I mean, listen, I know he's a comedian, but you can't say things like that, even in jest. And he wasn't jesting. Tariffs are a tax on the consumers of the United States. Now, if he was reducing income taxes dollar for dollar with tariff income, all right, I can buy that. But
Mm,
he's not. Income taxes are not being reduced. In fact, uh, he's not even, he doesn't want to raise taxes. But the fact is, and the reason why he wants to replace this clown that he's replacing on the Federal Reserve Board is he wants to he wants to do it not with direct taxes, but something even worse, printing money. I mean, uh, and his thing with tariffs is that he's destroying inadvertently, lots of American businesses that have part of their supply chain directly or indirectly from foreign countries. That's totally disrupted and unpredictably. You don't know whether your costs are going to be 25% higher or 100% higher or 500% higher arbitrarily, whatever he thinks. So he's destroying American businesses. He's reducing the standard of living of the average American with raising costs and he's destroying businesses of foreign countries who find it now uneconomic to export to the U.S. So this is uh,
yeah, Doug,
this
did
is
you see
all
that chart of import prices?
no.
Yeah, I really like this chart. I got it from my good friend Lynn Alden, and you can see exactly who's paying the tariffs on in aggregate. Because if you look at import prices, which do not include the tariffs, they're flat to up this year.
Mhm.
So there is no argument that the foreigners are paying the tariffs, or else you would have seen those prices go down.
Oh,
Right?
well, yes, of
And they're
course.
and they're
For,
actually up.
in other words, some foreigners are absorbing the costs of the tariffs so that they can still sell the stuff to the
No, they're
US. Is that
not.
what you're
No, they're
saying?
not. If the foreigners were absorbing the cost of the tariffs, the import prices would be down, and the import prices are actually up. So the,
Okay.
so
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 what's
the
happening?
so then you look at the CPI, and it's in part being picked up by the consumer, the American consumer, but in large part the tariffs are being picked up by U.S. businesses, U.S. based businesses, and it goes back to exactly what you're saying. Is there's so many of these uh, small and mid-sized businesses and large businesses in the United States that are importing inputs into whatever widget they make or whatever they produce, and they are having to pay the higher prices, and they can't pass those prices on to the consumer yet. They're just trying
Yeah.
to eat their margin just because the consumer is in such rough shape that they can't afford the higher prices, and the producers are worried that it's going to significantly impact the overall demand. And so they're just
Yeah.
trying to
Yeah.
absorb these tariffs, the US businesses, long enough to where Trump hopefully changes his mind. And if they can't, then they'll probably pass them on to the consumer.
Right. Okay. No, you're totally right, George. And that's in addition to the big problem, which is that more money is flowing into the coffers of the US government, which Trump
Yeah.
seems to think is
Yeah.
a good thing.
Yeah.
I think it's a bad thing. And once again, I'll repeat what I said. If he wants to extract another 300 or 400 or how many billions from the marketplace, then he should cut taxes dollar for dollar. But he should cut taxes much more. This what happened to Doge, incidentally? I thought we
Yeah.
were supposed to disband all these stupid and counterproductive and destructive agencies in the US government. They got rid of USAID, which is wonderful. That was probably the worst rotten apple in the barrel. But there's lots more like it. And momentum, has it been lost or not?
Yeah. It seems to me like he is running the United States government, the federal government, as if it's his own business.
Right.
And he's using the same metrics to determine success. So the more powerful my business is, the better.
Yeah.
The more money I have coming into my business, the better. The more leverage I have over my subcontractors, the better. The problem is, I think we would both agree that that's really bad policy when you're looking at the federal government. We don't want the government to have more money. We don't want the government to have more power. We want it to have the opposite of that. And I think that's probably when you look at everything that Trump does and you look at it through that lens, it seems to make sense that that's his objective.
Yeah. Yeah. You're absolutely right. That's the problem. He doesn't see the US government as an entity, as being a deadly predator, as
Right.
being the enemy of every average person. And that's the way I see it. He doesn't see it that way because now it's his US government and he's got to make it big. You know, years ago, there was this famous football star named Jack Kemp, and he
Mhm.
was made the head of the HUD, Housing and Urban Development.
Right.
And he was supposed to be such a great conservative and do all these conservative things. And what does this guy do? He wants to show how effective he is, and he doubles the size of HUD because he's going to run it on conservative principles, and he doubles it. So I'm afraid that's the case with Trump.
Right. And then the
Same
problem with that, of
syndrome.
course, is even if Jack Kemp has good intentions, then at a certain point he's not going to be there anymore. And so then he
Exactly.
doubles the power of the government, and then someone that comes in after him is likely going to use that power in nefarious ways or ways that are at the very least anti-free market.
Exactly. And of course, the most obvious case in point that way is the ICE organization, where they're
Mm,
paying $50,000 bonuses, plus guaranteed lots of overtime, plus uh, 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 deleting student loans and all kinds of benefits
right.
to build this organization. So you're going to have something like a 10,000 or 20,000 or who knows how many of these people are going to hire. And after Trump's out of office, it's still going to exist, just like the
Right.
TSA still exists, and it'll grow.
Yeah, I think what people have a hard time with is the idea that I first heard from Thomas Sowell. And this idea of there are no solutions, there are only trade-offs.
Yeah,
So I think one of the biggest problems that people have, just the average everyday American, is they look at things in terms of solutions. So they see Trump adding whatever 50,000 ICE agents, and they're like, oh, this is good because we want to reduce illegal immigration. But they don't think about the trade-off. Okay, so that's the benefit, but what's the cost? And I'm
yeah,
not talking about the cost in terms of financial cost. I'm talking about the cost to Americans and American citizens, freedom over the next 20 years, not just
yeah,
over the next 2 years.
yeah. That's exactly right. ICE is not going to be terminated, and they're not going to fire all those ICEistas in the future. They're going to be redeployed with new bad guys to round up, is what I'm afraid of,
Yeah.
especially. And it doesn't matter whether it's a Republican that's installed in 3.5 years or a Democrat. I mean, look, getting back to Trump, what do I think about Trump? All I can say is, first to start with, uh, thank God that Kamala was not elected, because we would be in real trouble then. It'd be much worse, as bad as Trump is. Instead of a fascist, and we ought to define that word, which is bandied around improperly all the time, we'd have an actual communist running the country, and it would be pretty much game over, and we'd be a lot closer to a civil war, which I think is where this country is going, quite frankly.
Yeah, I actually have a quote here from Mussolini. And I think it's really applicable to what Trump has been doing lately. And the problem here, too, is that the left and the wokesters, they misused that term so dramatically
Yeah,
when they're describing Trump. And it was just completely ridiculous that now I almost feel awkward using the F word, is what I said on Twitter the other day. But
it's
he's
funny.
getting dangerously close here, not from a
Oh
standpoint
yeah,
of being a racist or anything, but as far as his policy toward corporations. So I've got this quote from Mussolini, I think that really highlights what you're saying here. Fascism should more appropriately be called corporatism because it is a merger of state and corporate power.
yes, that's an excellent definition, as it should be, because Mussolini is the one that coined the word fascism from the Latin fasces in ancient Rome. Councils, for instance, were guarded by lictors who carried an axe surrounded by rods, the
Mm.
fasces, that would give strength to the axe. So it's an old Roman concept, and one of the bad ones that we got from Rome.
And I'm assuming the axe is representative of the state.
Yes, the power of the state. That's right.
Oh,
And the
wow.
fasces around it give strength so you don't break the handle, was basically the idea. And that Roman concept, uh, you see it on the Lincoln Memorial very appropriately, where there are some fasces on the Lincoln Memorial on the front of the chair where he's sitting. And for that matter, on the dime, you'll see fasces represented on the back of the dime.
Mm.
Uh, so it's an old concept, but fascism as a economic philosophy, the word was first coined by Mussolini. And let me technically go a little bit further with Mussolini. What you've got, I'm using a Marxist breakdown of this, and Marx, who coined the word communism, actually, economically, it's communism is technically, correctly, where the state owns both the means of production, factories, farms, fields, this type of thing, and private goods,
Mm.
shops, because those are not means of production, according to Marx and actually factually, clothes, houses, cars, that type of thing. All economic goods are either means of production or consumer goods. Okay, quite correct breakdown on Marx's part. So communism, the government owns and controls both. Okay, that's communism. There are no communist states. I guess North Korea came as close as anybody. The next step down the ladder, where you start, is socialism. The state owns the means of production and controls the means of production, but private goods are owned by individuals. And in real socialist countries, that's the fact. That's the way it worked. That was the way it was in the USSR, for instance, or for that matter, today in Cuba. The next step down is where the means of production and private goods are both owned by private individuals, but the state controls both of them. And that's almost all the countries in the world are, technically speaking, fascist. Marx would look at them and say, fascist, all of them. And the next step is capitalism, which, like communism, doesn't exist anywhere, where everything is not only owned privately, but controlled privately.
Right.
Critical difference. So anyway, Trump is a confused puppy. He's a megalomaniac, no question about that. An egomaniac, no question about that. And I just hope that power doesn't further go to his head and he doesn't become a psychopath.
Let me play devil's advocate, because I completely agree. But there's going to be a lot of the MAGA folks that are watching this video, and they're going to push back and say, okay, let's just assume that Trump is employing a strategy where the government plays a bigger role in corporate America. If it's for the benefit of the United States, if it's for national security, and if we've been doing it for the last 75 years, but just kind of behind the scenes, what's wrong with that? So, like, as an example, they took a position, an equity position in Intel. I'm sure you read about that.
Yeah.
And then Lutnick comes out today or yesterday and says that they're thinking about taking an equity position in Lockheed Martin.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. And then I think they took another equity position in that mining company that is mining for rare earths.
MP Materials, which
Okay.
MP stands for Mountain Pass. That's right, another one. And
So what would your rebuttal be for that person that sees this as, okay, maybe it's not ideal, maybe it's not free market capitalism, but Doug, that's a fantasy world. We're never going to have, it's great in theory, but in reality, we have to have government. We have to have a component of government involved in the private sector. And it just boils down to good decision making by the king. And I support our king. And if our king says that we need to have an equity position in Intel for national security reasons, then great, I'm all for it.
Yeah, well, people that believe that have a very shaky ethical foundation. And number one, and number two, they have no understanding of economics. Not number one and number two. Ethically and economically, it's wrong. Look, you've got to understand, or they should understand, that the state, the government, is not your friend. It's not Uncle Sugar. It'll kiss everything and make it better. It's your enemy. It's a predator that's hunting you down. Maybe not you as an individual right now, unless you stick your head up. So the idea is, look, people that want to give anything to the state and the kind of people that work for the state really need to do some thinking, because the fact of the matter is that people that work for the government or want to be elected as politicians are the wrong kind of person. You got two kinds of people in the world. People that believe in cooperation and voluntarism, that's one type. And then you got people that are busybodies that like to boss other people around. They're social engineers. They like power over other people. And those people are inevitably drawn to the government where they can boss around their fellow citizens. So you don't get the best and the brightest to work for government. That's a ridiculous, stupid meme. You get the poorest and worst kind of people that generally have the gift of gab and lots of stupid something for nothing ideas, which when they disseminate them to the hoi polloi, they say, gee, that sounds good, something for nothing, or something that somebody else is going to pay for, which is the case. So, George, as you know, my idea of the state, since it's a dangerous contraption, an institution, and since it represents pure force, pure coercion, that's what the state's about. There's no voluntarism about it. Forget all this bullshit about free elections and democracy and our representatives like Mr. Smith goes to war. It's all nonsense. It's it's pure coercion and very dangerous. So it ought to be limited because we live in a civil society. That means it should be nothing if you're going to have one, but to protect you from coercion otherwise. That means an army to protect you from coercion outside your borders, police to protect you from violence and fraud inside your borders, and a court system to adjudicate disputes without resorting to force. Nothing else. Nothing else. Nothing. That's it. The roads, the schools, this is all better done and should only be done by the citizens, private citizens who are doing things for profit or perhaps because they're charitable, doesn't matter. But you don't want the state involved and the kind of people that always get involved in the state working for it. That was one of the good things about Trump is he wasn't a career politician, uh, which
Yeah, but he's
favorably
turning out
inclined
to
him.
be he's turning
He's
out to
turning
be
out to be
exactly
right.
like him, like that
Yeah.
those guys on steroids. Doug, did you ever see the movie Silence of the Lambs?
Yes, I did. Very good movie.
Yeah, so that's the example I always use in terms of how we should look at government. And because people, on the right or the left, doesn't matter, they're not in favor of smaller government. They're just in favor of better government.
Right.
The right team red and team blue, they all want bigger government. They just
Yeah.
want it their way.
Yeah.
And they say that they're all about the Constitution until their guy wants to break the Constitution, and then they make an excuse as to why that makes sense and we should allow it this time.
It's amazing when these people talk about the Constitution, uh, because the Constitution is a total and complete dead letter. The only parts of the Constitution that are observed are the parts that talk about how the intricacies of the government works, like the vice president breaks ties in the Senate and trivia like that. That's
Yeah.
what the Constitution. They observe that part of the
There's
Constitution.
no binding or government constraint component of the Constitution anymore. Although there is in words, in practice, there's not.
Yes, look at the Bill of Rights. If we, which is the most important part of the Constitution, if we went through that line by line, we would see that the whole thing is a dead letter. It's a
Mhm.
sham. It's kabuki theater at this point. Uh, and the problem is that I've always been extremely pro-American because America is not just a piece of geography, it's an idea.
Right.
And the problem is the idea has been corrupted over time. And it really only exists as an ideal now. And even the ideal is being washed away. And the US is becoming just like the other 200 nation states that cover the face of the globe like a skin disease at this point.
Yeah, but if you look at the founding fathers, I think they had the attitude that I have towards government, looking at it through the lens of the movie, and that's Silence of the Lambs. And you
Hmm.
remember in the movie how Hannibal Lecter was like the most dangerous human being ever, and to the
Yes.
point where they had to put him in a straitjacket, and they have that thing over his mouth because
Well,
even his words are so dangerous that if you hear them, you might be brainwashed into doing whatever evil act that he wants you to do. But they were put into a position, Jodie Foster, where it's trade-offs again. There are no solutions, and they get put into a position that's so desperate that one of their only options is to use Hannibal Lecter, but you have to use him so carefully because that he's literally trying to eat you. He's like a cannibal. He's literally trying to manipulate you at all times. So you use him as an absolute last resort. And if you do use him, you have to use him knowing that he's trying to consume you at all times. He's trying to kill you. He's trying to take advantage of you. He's trying, in terms of government, he's trying to control your life. He's trying to do all of these things. He is a dangerous entity. And so I think if we just looked at government as though the government is Hannibal Lecter, that we would all be far better off.
Well, you're right, George, but you're not going far enough. Best thing to do with Hannibal Lecter is put a bullet through his head. I mean,
Yeah.
quite frankly, he's just too dangerous. So, and just too evil and too intrinsically criminal. So I understand what you're saying, but you're not going far enough.
So let's talk about free speech, because I was a one issue voter. I said this many times prior to the election, where I don't like any politicians. I wasn't a huge fan of Trump, but I thought that he had some bravado, and I thought that he could make some significant changes.
Sure.
But outside of that, for me, it was all about freedom of speech, because I'm like, regardless of how bad Trump ends up or how good, whatever, as long as we have freedom of speech, we're going to be able to talk about this. We're going to be able to expose bad ideas. And this is how we can kind of muddle through even a desperate situation. The problem there is, setting aside the corporate fascism, and the problem that I have with that is now I don't want to say he's backpedaling on free speech, but he's doing some authoritarian things that, for me, completely cross the line. So, as an example, um, basically the BLS, you know how he fired the gal that was working at the BLS?
Right. Yeah.
And I don't know if this would really qualify as a freedom of speech issue, but it shows you his willingness to try to silence people that he doesn't like what they're saying. And
Oh,
so
yeah. 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 You're
he
right.
comes
Yeah.
yeah, so he comes out and he fires the gal because he says she's trying to cook the numbers to make him look bad. And it is true that she should have been fired, but I don't know that there was political motivation there, because she showed the exact same incompetence when she was under Biden. And so my point that I'm trying to highlight to the audience is, she was juicing the headline number and revising down the the previous month's numbers. But she was doing the exact same thing under Biden, the exact same thing. So I don't know how you can say that's political. If it was political, she'd be doing the opposite. She would have juiced the numbers with Biden and revised them down. But then when Trump came along, she would have downplayed the headline number, because that's the most important to the market. And then she would have revised the others up. And so I don't know. And then also, she's in charge of the CPI, and or at least the BLS. So I don't know how you can make a solid argument that she was intentionally trying to get in Trump's way or make him look bad. So then you've got Trump, firing her and getting someone else in. And the problem with that is, how, even if you're really pro Trump or pro MAGA, do you really think the guy that he's going to put in there is going to accurately portray the numbers moving forward?
No, he's
I
going
mean,
to portray it in the way that seems best at the time.
exactly,
You're right.
exactly, and
So
because
what's
he
the so
knows
so
that.
what would you do, George? Now let's suppose you're the president. How are you gonna solve this problem? You've got a rotten apple at the top, but it looks bad if you dismiss her. So have you thought about how you solve this problem?
I'd probably let someone else hire her.
How
I'd
about
probably have a third party, if I could, do the hiring of the new BLS person, or I'd have some sort of, I'm just thinking out loud here, a committee look into the model to see if the model is broken. And but I think what he's doing there is, he's just sending a message that if you say something he doesn't like, and he sees you as getting in the way of achieving his objectives, he'll use whatever means possible to remove you. I'm not saying put you in jail or anything, but just get you out of his way. And the danger, and a lot of people would say, well, that's good. He's getting the job done. He's willing to shake things up. The problem there is, again, it puts us on this slippery slope where we become a nation of men instead of a nation of law. And regardless of what we need done, we need to do it within the confines of the law, or else long term we're just making things worse. That's really my position here. And then another thing that he just did is he tried to pass a law or executive order or whatever the hell it was that puts someone in jail for a year if they burn the flag.
Yes, that's
And
another subject worthy of discussion. But
yeah, go ahead.
let's talk about the BLS. It's not a question of replacing the captain of the ship. It's a question of sinking the ship. I mean, why does the US government have a Bureau of Labor Statistics? What does the government have to do with labor statistics and hiring and firing? Oh, well, that must be so that the Federal Reserve knows, quote unquote, whether it should raise rates or lower rates or pump up the money supply or cut down the money supply so that the labor situation looks better. The government, this is pure fascism. The government should have nothing to do with the labor market or anything like it. So the answer to the question is that the BLS should be abolished. And insofar as the data that it processes is worthwhile, well, Standard and Poor's or Dow Jones or 100 other companies can process that data instead,
Yeah.
and you can believe it from them. But it shouldn't be a drain on the taxpayer or confusing the minds of the public, because it's like the BLS in Argentina. It was totally and absolutely corrupt. And of
Mm,
course, since the US is following the model of Argentina under Perón, it's going to become more totally corrupt and more politically motivated in the future. And this goes for 100 other agencies in the US government that everybody thinks are part of the cosmic firmament, but they should be abolished.
yeah.
Done.
What's funny is
Gone.
I heard of hedge fund man. It wasn't Cuppy, but it was a hedge fund manager talk about the irony that the United States is moving more towards, what was the word? The Peronists
Yes,
in
the Peronists.
Argentina, as the Argentinians are moving more towards what the United States used to be.
That's correct. And of course, Perón was a huge fan of Mussolini and
Oh,
modeled
I
the
didn't know that.
Argentine. Oh, yes, totally.
Huh.
Huge fan of Mussolini, personally and professionally, and modeled the Argentine economy after Italy's. Because after all,
Wow.
we all know that Mussolini made the trains run on time. Well, he had to do
Huh.
something right. So
Wow. So what do you think about the flag burning issue?
I think if you want to burn a flag, you should. In fact, I'm all for people that want to burn flags doing it. And the reason is, like any other free speech thing, is I want to know who these people are and what they believe. And they're saying, here I am. This is what I believe. Well, now I know how I want to deal with that person or stay away from them, actually.
Mm,
So I think it's in poor taste. And insofar as the flag represents American ideals, which it no longer does, incidentally, uh, yeah. But so I'm not for flag burning personally, but I think that you ought to be able to boo it. It's rather unseemly and repulsive. But the government, once again, shouldn't be involved in monitoring what people do with symbols. Libertarians are not big on flags and political symbols anyway. But what do you think, George? If I
I completely
affronted,
agree.
yeah,
It's just when I voted for Trump, like I was saying earlier, and I remember the first thing that he did where I really scratched my head. I was like, "Whoa, whoa, 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 time out here. This is not what I voted for." Was when he came out with his own shit coin.
oh
And
yes,
I'm like, "What are you doing?" And then he's like pumping and dumping the Melania coin. And I don't know if you remember, but remember the Reverend, the guy that was the Reverend at the inauguration? He
no,
comes out with his own shit coin as well.
oh yeah,
And then his kids are pumping shit coins.
yeah,
And they're and I'm like, "What is going on here?" I'm like, This is at the very it's not just the fact that it's a grift and it's bad morally, but this shows you kind of his the lack of principles and lack of just kind of a guiding north star. And if he's willing to do something like this, like
yeah,
what else is he willing to do that we don't know about? So I gave him a pass on that.
Yeah.
But that was the first like real red flag. And then he starts, with the tariffs, which was another red flag. And then just kind of his schizophrenic approach to everything, which people will say, Doug, of course, is 5D chess, right? And I'm sure you've heard that a million times.
Oh, yeah. Except it's so stupid. Maybe it's actually 16D chess, and we're too dumb to realize it.
Yeah, but even if it is, it still has the economic impacts you were referring to where businesses just cannot make a decision. And
Yeah.
so then looking at it on net balance, I would argue that even if there are some benefits on net, it's going to be detrimental to the United States long term. And it sets a precedence. And by the way, as a libertarian or someone who wants smaller government, I would encourage people to go back and look at the time when Trump that he talks about in his speeches, where we had tariffs. So this was it McKinley that he always touts as some sort of tariff hero back at the turn of this was it 1900s? Was I think it was
Yeah,
McKinley.
a little before a horrible president, incidentally, but that's another
Yeah, but Trump
question.
always says that he was just a genius because he had all these tariffs. But if you actually go back and look at the history as to why the United States abandoned tariffs and in favor of an income tax, which was just as bad, but it was due to how much
Worse.
it was due to how much corruption was a result of these tariffs because it gave the federal government the ability to pick winners and losers. So every single time you got a new president or a new administration or a new governor, whatever it was, then all these lobbyists would go in there to try to change the tariffs to favor the XYZ corporation. And this corruption became so pervasive in the government that it actually incentivized or motivated the average Joe and Jane back then to favor an income tax as opposed to a tariff, and along with a regressive tax. That was another argument, but that was the big reason they abandoned it, was due to the corruption within the government. So I don't know how you can sit there and argue that even if you think Trump is a great guy and is a benevolent dictator or whatever, and even if you think he should have that power, you have to realize that, again, you're dealing with Hannibal Lecter. And that if you set the precedence for tariffs, then we have this moving forward with the next regime, the next president, then you are going to get an increase in not only the size of government, but you're going to get an increase in the corruption within that government. I think that's something that people miss.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I've given my solution to Hannibal Lecter earlier. But
Yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah. But
but we have to live in the world of here and now and the way things are. And um, as a stock market guy, I'm a believer that trends in motion tend to stay in motion
yeah,
until they reach a crisis and turn around. And the trend towards bigger government, it's been growing and growing like a cancer for many years. If you're going to pick the real turning point, it would be 1913 with the inauguration of both the income tax and the Federal Reserve,
yeah,
which of course enabled the U.S. to join World War I, which was catastrophic and stupid, and no excuse for the U.S. being involved in it. So things are
yeah.
going to get worse, and things
So
are
when
totally
you look
out
at
of
this,
control. Things are out of control now. The U.S. government is on tilt. I
when you
play
look at
poker,
all of
and
these red flags, which from a libertarian standpoint, and you look at the policies of Trump, I'm seeing more and more red flags every single day. And we
yeah,
talked about the corporative. We talked about taking basically a commission on everything that Nvidia exports to China. I don't know how that's legal constitutionally. And then also now he's firing this gal at the Fed, which maybe she deserves to be fired. I don't know. But as
I
far
think
as
she
I can
does. Yeah,
tell, it's only an accusation. I don't know that
yeah,
she's been convicted of anything, but
no,
it's
it's
just
true.
this authoritarian approach that is I'm seeing more and more and more of this authoritarian approach.
Yeah.
So I guess as a thought experiment, I'd like to ask you, is there a certain point where you would say Kamala would have been a better choice?
Well,
Or are we at that point where it's
yeah,
actually an interesting thought experiment that isn't so cut and dry?
yeah. Well, the thing is, the U.S. government is a giant behemoth, and it has a life of its own. it is, as they say, a self-licking ice cream cone. And it's true that the person on top can have an effect on it. But at this point, it's out of control. The US
Right,
government
right.
itself is on tilt. That's a term. I play poker, and you can see this with poker players that get into the hole and they keep doubling and redoubling their bets and hoping to get out even. In fact, it's not just an ordinary institution that's on tilt. It's become criminally insane.
Mm,
Uh, and it's going to end very, very badly because it's armed with nuclear weapons and it's sticking its nose into everything, everywhere in the world. In fact, in Guyana, uh, now that they've got a big oil discovery down there, the US is trying to get the Guyanese to accept another military base, like 1,800 military bases around the world aren't enough. Now we got to have another one in Guyana.
yeah.
I
And
mean,
this is another one of my problems. This is and I told everyone we'd piss him off today. And by the way, I want to be clear. I'm not saying that Trump is worse than Kamala, but I'm saying it's just we're getting to a point where I think it's a reasonable question to ask. But going back to what you're saying, this is another thing. I mean, I thought we were going to stop these wars. I thought we were going
no,
to stop the Ukraine war. I didn't realize we were going to continue to give Zelensky, everything he wants. I didn't know we were going to bomb Iran. I didn't know. I
yeah,
thought we were going to not do these things moving
yeah,
forward. I thought we were going to reduce the amount of military bases,
yeah,
and now we're just getting more and more. It's like business as
yeah.
usual here, and that's just another issue I have. I wish there was one party represented in the United States government that was actually anti-war.
Oh, well, uh, the opposite of Israel, in other words. And I guess Israel is like the 51st state of the Union at
Yeah,
this point.
right.
And I understand, I heard this, but it's hard to believe anything that you hear or read, that 1,000 more medium range missiles have been sent to Ukraine. I mean, what are they
Um,
trying to, are they trying to, are they trying to provoke World War III, like getting the Estonians to allow the launching of missiles into Russia? I mean, how crazy are these people? What do the Estonians think is going to happen if some missile launched from their ground does some serious damage? I mean, these people they're actually criminally insane, which goes
yeah.
back to what I was saying about the type of people that go into government.
And what we should do to Hannibal Lecter.
Right, exactly. No, I don't have any solutions for these problems because the average American who may be unhappy about certain things, but the average American has been so miseducated and so corrupt that he goes along with all these things.
Mm,
It's the government and the country has a life of its own at this point, and I'm afraid it may be beyond redemption. Trump was a good shot to
yeah.
destroy the deep state and redeem the situation, but I'm afraid he's failing miserably at that task.
And he's
Well,
covering up for the deep state when you look at what his approach is to Epstein.
yes, of course, that's an outstanding example. Well, my solution to all this, incidentally, because it's not enough to just kvetch about about how bad the world is and say, "Oh, isn't it awful? Isn't it awful? What do we?" So I decided that what I was going to do, George, was something proactive. And so I wrote a book.
Oh yeah.
Americans don't read books anymore, as you know, but still, I thought I'd do it just on general principles. And this is with Matt Smith, who's and his son,
Yeah.
who is my partner in my podcast on YouTube. And I haven't even told you about this book. We just
Yeah,
before
but I
the
listen to your
show.
podcast, so I've listened to you guys describe it, and it sounds incredible. And it sounds exactly what we need in today's
Yeah,
day and age. Because if we really want to impact change, we've got to influence young people and show them kind of the right path as we see it.
yeah, exactly. That's correct because the educational system has turned into a cesspool.
Mhm.
It has been, in fact, the educational system, academia, may actually, other than the government itself, be the single most corrupt area of US society. And it's a pity because for forever, Americans would always say, go to college, It's your key to success. You'll earn more money and blah, blah, blah. And it, to some extent, it used to be true because actually just the best and the brightest would go to college to learn academic subjects, which are very important. But now going to college will bankrupt you,
Yeah.
will it can cost 100 grand a year, uh, as much as that in many colleges actually. And it's not just that, and you have an albatross of debt around your neck, which can't be gotten rid of without paying it off. But all of the professors, I won't say all, but almost all the professors in colleges today are totally woke or actually Marxists, and they're
Hmm.
teaching shit subjects, like uh,
Like
worthless subjects.
economics.
Well, none of that. I mean, yeah, that's terrible. The English departments are actually the biggest defenders. They're just indoctrination deposits at this point. So,
Yeah.
what I'm suggesting in this book with Matt is that college be shit canned, unless you're going there with intention because you want to take science, technology, engineering, or math courses, or you need a diploma for a law degree, or you're going into medicine. That would be another one where lab work
Yeah. Right.
is
Right.
necessary. Uh, there's a better solution, and what we've laid out in this book is how to get a better education, both in the Bachelor of Arts area and the Bachelor of Sciences area, and I can
Hmm.
talk about the difference there. But by the time you spend that 4 years, also getting the equivalent of an MBA, which is very practical because that's law, accounting, business management, uh, and marketing. So all of these things, an education in real science and real literature and history, plus learning practical things. Like by the time a young man takes the preparation, he'll be a fairly skilled martial artist and have spent 3 months in Thailand to learn how to do that. He'll know how to fly a plane.
Mm.
He'll know how to weld and work with metals because he'll take a course for a month in Canada where you do that stuff hand on. He'll learn how to drive heavy equipment, bulldozers and backhoes and cranes and all the rest of it, uh, by going to Florida and playing with big trucks in the dirt for a month. And there's a lot more. So that by the time if somebody reads this book and puts the theory into practice, and we show exactly how to do it and how much it costs and where to go and why to do it and why to stay the hell away from college. The idea is to transform yourself into a Renaissance man
Right. I mean,
where
I
you
think
can,
every at least young male that's between the ages of 13 and 30 should read that book. And
yes,
I mean, you know what's interesting is I've seen that play out in real life with Josh. Remember Josh that when we did the Argentina trip
yeah,
and he was the kid there that was with us. There's Josh and Shane. Shane was one of the viewers of the channel that tagged along with us, and Josh was my assistant at the time. And he did not, I mean, he almost flunked out of high school. I don't know that he even graduated. And he obviously didn't go to college. Instead, he decided to basically intern for me at the channel when he was, I don't know, 18, 19. It was the first time he'd ever been on a plane when he came down to meet me. And as a result of that, and just being, available for whatever I needed him to do, and kind of learning YouTube and learning content creation, learning marketing skills, sales funnels. And now he's really, really learning AI and how to leverage that to grow businesses, small and mid-size. He's 22 years old now, and he's built this business where he's doing seven figures in a business, and he's 22 years old. And he had the ability to do this because of the networking that he was doing by working with me and meeting guys like you, and then providing value, and providing tremendous value, and value in the form of things that he learned by doing, not just by trying to be in a classroom and regurgitate useless information, or counterproductive even information that kids are learning today. So he is a perfect success story that he didn't read your book, but he implemented inadvertently, because that was kind of his natural tendency. He implemented these practices in real life, and as a result, he's basically a millionaire at 22 years old.
Well, that is the way it ought to be, actually. And now he's got the capital and the leisure to further transform himself so that he needn't be intimidated, which is a problem. People who don't go to college are often intimidated. They think that people have learned something that they should have learned. And this is even more true with MBAs who are even worse, to realize that most of it's just bullshit. And it's like, do you remember Saturday Night Live, the character Father Guido Sarducci?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Guido
Yeah.
Sarducci had the 5 Minute University, and he goes on to say that he doesn't remember anything that he learned in college except for his Spanish course. And all he remembers from that is muy bien.
Yeah.
And that's all he learned from college. And it's true because when kids go to college more today than ever, it's about partying and BS sessions and drinking and going to classes. And well, first of all, you cut the class because you're too tired in the morning from the partying and staying up late the night before. And then drifting off and your mind is wandering in class and the teacher's substandard. And even if he says something that's worthwhile, he says it once and you forget it.
Mhm.
Your notes are no, it's college at huge cost doing this. It's crazy. And the solution that we have for this is that, yes, you should know all the basics of physics and all the basics of chemistry and all the basics of biology. And you should know lots of US history and world history and English literature. All of these things are what a Renaissance man should know, in addition to having the MBA skills. We take 4 of our 16 quarters are basically becoming an MBA. So actually, he should do this now,
Yeah.
building upon the foundation that he's already laid for himself.
Yeah. So, Doug, I wanted to actually get your view, and this kind of dovetails exactly what you're talking about with the book and Josh. What's happening with AI? And I think, regardless of people's opinion on the price of NVIDIA, we can all agree that AI is definitely going to be a big part of the future. And I see the statistics right now for college students graduating and how difficult the job market is for them. In fact, I think that the unemployment rate for college grads, especially when you look at the white collar professions, the unemployment rate is like at an all-time high, or very close to it. And it makes sense because a lot of these things that kids are studying in school, that AI is just going to do a much better job of it. So not only are you going to school, and even if you do learn something that used to be applicable, it's very likely that by the time you get out of school, there's not going to be any jobs for you because AI is going to be doing it all. So do you guys address that in the book?
Yeah, we do, as a matter of fact, in a number of different ways. But part of it is the basic idea of going to college. It's become a white collar trade school. That's what it's like. It's like it's like taking shop classes in high school, except in a
Right.
white collar way for essentially useless subjects that you should learn, but you should learn them yourself as a hobby and because you want to better yourself. So that's another objection that I have to college. And about AI, there's a bubble in that market, in the stock market, but also with companies that are promising to put not just millions, but tens and hundreds of billions of data centers and so
Yeah.
forth.
Right.
And I think this is going to end badly for lots of different reasons. That said, AI itself is going to change the whole nature of life, not as thoroughly as nanotechnology will, which I've been a fan of nanotechnology for 30 years, ever since I met Eric Drexler and we spent time together. He's the godfather of nanotechnology. That's going to be the really, really big one.
Mm,
But AI is enabling it. And problem with new technologies like AI is that it's like gunpowder. Gunpowder is a very good thing, fantastic thing. It helped to overturn the old order. But before it overturned the old order, the first people that got gunpowder were the nobles and the people that were keeping the serfs down. First, it
right.
controlled the serfs, but then the serfs used it to overturn knights on mounted horses. So it's going to be like that with AI. The government's using it to start with to control everybody even more than before, where they know everything about you,
Mm,
everything. But eventually the cat's going to get out of the bag, like with the computer, same thing. First, it was a control device, and now, as we're doing now, it's a liberation device. And so I think it'll form the same path. But, well, in the case of college, for instance, kids are all writing their papers using AI. I mean, are they learning anything?
right.
No, they're not. Maybe a little bit about AI, but they're trying to get a grade, which is really a stupid idea. Um, so if they're smart kids, they'll rewrite the paper enough so the professor can't immediately identify it as being cribbed from AI. But another AI is another thing that makes college fairly useless today,
Yeah.
or most jobs fairly useless, white collar jobs.
Yeah, my concern with that is the unemployment rate, all else being equal, outside of recession, goes from let's say 4.2 to 6, 7, 8%. And
Can't
I
believe
think
any of
that,
those numbers. Can't believe any of those numbers anyway. They're
yeah,
all fudged.
yeah.
They
But
really are.
my concern is Trump uses that as an excuse to even grow the size of government bigger, and because he's coming in as the guy on the white horse,
Yeah,
very similar to FDR
yeah,
and
yeah.
the
Very
work
similar.
programs that they had back
Yeah.
then. And you look at that, you look at UBI, you look at some of these things that I think we will see in the next 5 years, and it just I hope I'm wrong, but I just see us going in the direction of the government increasing to a size that's almost unimaginable, even under Trump. And then once he's gone, then it can be used as a weapon against us by someone who's, let's say, far less benevolent.
Yes, that's right. And there's a lot of stuff that we can talk about based upon that. I mean, for instance, when the grossly overpriced stock market and even more grossly overpriced bond market collapses, uh, a lot of wealth that people thought they have is going to disappear, including the equity in their houses, because the housing market depends on interest rates. And as far as I'm concerned, and of course, I always make a joke about predicting the level of interest rates and direction of interest rates, but I think it's going much higher, uh, which is going to make the housing market collapse besides. And are we going to have a deflationary collapse? Not if the government can help it, because they're going to print even more money to forestall these things. So we're heading for a financial catastrophe and an economic depression of historic proportions. And people will ask for the government to fix it and make it
Right.
better because the government's the
Exactly.
magic corporate.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, you're absolutely right. So we're headed in the worst possible direction in the US and in the world today. And the only thing you can do about it personally, it's not going out and voting for the next asshole who presents himself and lies about whoever he is, because they're all just kabuki figures that are created by
Hmm.
God knows who. The only thing you can do is arm yourself with as many skills and as much knowledge as you can and an ethical and moral foundation. Because the most important thing when times get tough isn't just knowing a lot or having a lot, it's being known as being a stand-up guy who does
Yeah.
the right thing. That's the most important thing. And people
And
are
being part of
lacking
a
that
community
too.
and being part of a community of like-minded individuals. I think that at the end of
Yeah.
the day, we all need each other, and you can't do this alone, even the great Doug Casey. So the better your network is of individuals and the more value you can offer that network, the more resilient you're going to be, the more anti-fragile you're going to be.
That's why I like hanging out with guys like you, George, because you are a stand-up guy. I know I can rely on you, and I know that you can be counted on to do the right thing. And those are the only kind of people I like to hang out with. Like there's one friend of mine who writes an excellent economic blog, and he's always talking about my friends on the left. I don't have any friends on the left. Why? Because friend, because if they're leftists, there's something wrong with the way they think, or something wrong with their basic ethical and moral foundation.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I'm polite to them, and maybe I'll socialize with them, but it's like a rabid pit bull
yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
you
It's like
know.
the guys burning the flag. They're
Yeah,
basically
exactly.
they're
Yeah,
basically making an announcement that
yeah,
hey, don't be
exactly.
friends with me.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. All this stuff, and this is Europe. Europe is totally screwed
Yeah,
because there you can't say anything, you can't even think
yeah,
anything without it being a thought crime. Today, Europe is totally fucked. There's no way out for Europe, I'm afraid. They're on the
yeah.
slippery slope,
And
way
last
down the slippery slope.
and last question for you, Doug, and I appreciate your time. And it's something that's extremely important, and it's kind of like all roads lead to having a plan B. Like if you're someone that sees the world the way we do, if you're someone that values freedom and liberty and all these things, the plan B is like a no-brainer. Like there's no downside to it. But and I'm in Medellin, you're in the US now, but usually you're in Uruguay or BA, Argentina.
Yeah, one
And
of the two.
and I'm sure whenever you talk about this, you get the exact same question. I get it constantly. They say, okay, George, I get it. Medellin, I see the advantages, but do you feel safe? This is the question I always get, like 99.9% of the time. That's the first question. And my rebuttal to that is I retired in 2012. I could live anywhere on the planet Earth I choose to live. Do you actually think that I would choose to live in a place where I didn't feel safe? Like, come on, man, come on.
That's right.
But how do you answer that question?
Just the way you did, because I'm in the same position. Uh, Look, the problem is that most Americans, we've had it. Being born in the United States in the 20th century, you won the jackpot. You
Yeah,
won the cosmic jackpot. We were so lucky. But people got to realize that things change, and things are changing rapidly in the US. So you've got your biggest danger, your financial danger, your economic, huge, huge dangers. But an even bigger danger is the political danger.
yeah,
And you've got to diversify yourself politically. That's why you've got to have a crib if you can afford it someplace else. And if you can't afford it, well, you better do something about that so you can't afford it. And as far as safety is concerned, I would say of the big cities in the world, Buenos Aires is absolutely one of the safest. And I
mhm,
live on a farm in Uruguay, and I can't imagine a safer place to be. I
mm,
mean, the locals are friendly, they're prosperous, they're well educated. You can have guns. I mean, I've got 3 guns that I just bought. I mean, I could have, in fact, they just changed the law. They used to have a restriction you couldn't have more than 5 guns. They raised it to 8. So the trend is good. So, so no, these people ought to get on a plane that are afraid. Fear is your enemy also, and
mhm,
go to these places and find out. Don't listen to the
absolutely.
crap that you hear on the mass media that likes to keep people frightened and afraid and hiding in their little cubby holes like hothouse plants that
Yeah,
can't be moved.
yeah, well said. I think I was listening to one of your podcasts, and you said that a good idea would be to go to, I forgot the government agency that tells you if a certain area is dangerous. You know,
The
they
State
give a
Department, State Department does that.
there you go. Yeah, so they have like a list of don't go to these
Yeah,
places. dangerous, dangerous, dangerous. And you said what you would actually do is look at that list, and those are the first places you'd go.
Yes, of course. Like I went to Israel during the Second Intifada when, there was much, much safer than Israel would be normally because they were on red alert. And it was ultra safe. Not only that, but you visit the Dead Sea, and instead of mobs that you can't even get in the water, you have the whole lake to yourself. And so it's wonderful. That's exactly, and the hotels were empty, didn't have to make reservations. Costs were about, a third of what normally. No, people do just the opposite of what they should do based on mania and hysteria. It's
There
crazy.
you go. Yeah, Doug, how do you get the book?
Oh, the book, the preparation.
Yeah.
Just go on Amazon and order it, and you'll be very happy that you did. And give it to your kid, and talk to your kid about what he should do instead of robotically going off to college to be corrupted and embedded. It's insane. And this is a solution to it. And also, if people want to, they can go to internationalman.com, where I write an article every week, but 5 other guys write articles that are really great. It's a great free blog. And my podcast is called Doug Casey's Take on YouTube. So love to hear from any of your folks, George.
Yeah. Doug, thanks a lot for your time as always, buddy. It's a pleasure to speak to you. And I know I've said it a million times, but thanks for being a mentor to me. The time that I spent with you in BA was just absolutely amazing. It's something I'll remember for the rest of my life, and just keep being a shining example and kind of that North Star that we need in the freedom and liberty space.
Oh, thank you, George. And back to you. I feel the same way. And I hope that some of the things that I've said haven't caused you to lose some subscribers and disgust that you would associate with a person such as myself.
Well, I hope I have lost I hope we did piss some people off, because that means we're talking about topics that we really need to discuss.
And you need to call the herd sometimes anyway. So
that's right. Okay. All right, buddy. Have a good one.
See you later, George.